Back now on Triad today, and just about time for the roundtable, but another quick shout out to the good folks at Senior Botanical Garden. Adrienne Rothling and her team here do a great job. You can go to their website, but come on out to the garden, and if you want to book an event, a wedding, reception, luncheon, or whatever, you can do that here too. Now, you can also sit around and listen to these three guys. We'll see what they have to say. On my right, but always the political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist, and socially distanced behind us, we have held over David Daggett from his triathlon segment, and Keith Granberry, I think, who also runs triathlons, don't you?
In my sleep.
Yeah, in your sleep. Founder of Helping Hands Consultants. All right, guys, let's get to it. We all know that during a crisis period, an oil shortage, a pandemic, or whatever, that presidents and governors will often get on TV and say, look, there'll be no price gouging during this crisis. We'll come down on you hard. Thing is, we're coming out of a crisis, and that's when the real price gouging is starting. A lot of prices up 40, 50%. Shouldn't the government step in now and say, wait a minute, I know you're trying to make up for lost revenue, but you can't do this, Ogie?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this inflationary spiral that we're in right now, it's not all supply and demand. Some of it is, but a lot of it's plain out gouging, pure and simple gouging.
Right, David?
I think the hard part for us to sort out is what's the gouging and what is the natural economic forces that are taking place, because there are issues of supply and demand and there are issues of gouging. Unfortunately, it becomes what's best politically, not best for all of us, and it's difficult.
Keith, what do you think?
I think it's taking advantage of the consumer, and I think it is gouging, and I think that the government should step in immediately to regulate some of this price war.
Yeah, we've really never done that post-crisis, and now we ought to do it. Okay, speaking of spending money, the Winston-Salem County School Board has contracted with an outside firm to help them hire substitute teachers. So they've hired somebody to hire somebody. Guys, my question is this a good investment or an unnecessary expense? Ogie.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're going to have somebody in-house do it if you don't if you don't contract it out. So, had 6 of one, half a dozen others.
Yeah, I don't know the expertise of the contracted company. I do know that substitute teachers, it's very difficult to administrate and to find them right now. So perhaps this outside company has more expertise. But as Ogie says, you got to pay for it one way or another. So perhaps it'll work out okay.
Keith.
I don't think you need to hire an outside consulting firm to hire substitute teachers. I mean, there's a process that you have in place. Look at all of the people who need the jobs and hire them. But we also need real teachers in some of these schools who are suffering in the first place, and the pandemic has only made it worse.
All right, last week a Raleigh judge fined a local newspaper reporter $500 for having an audio recorder in the courtroom and then put the reporter's editor in jail for 5 days. The reporter said he was just trying to get more accurate notes during the trial. Did the judge's punishment fit the crime? And do you think it should be okay to have an audio tape in a trial? Ogie, what do you think?
I've been saying for years that reporters ought to be able to tape trials. The rule is you can't. I mean, you can't. I've gotten caught with a camera at a place.
5 days in jail for an editor?
That's not right. For the editor, no.
David.
Well, what I don't know is what did the judge rule in the case and what were the judge's instructions and how blatant were the violations of the instructions. We also don't know from what you've told us what the subject matter is. Is that regarding a minor? Is it something confidential? You know, what is it? On some cases, I agree with Ogie. On other cases, including sexual abuse of a minor, it ought to be confidential and no recordings.
Yeah.
Keith.
I think it depends on the case. I mean, if this case is something that requires confidentiality and you get someone with a recorder in there, that violates the law, and that has to be a strict punishment.
Well, on the topic of the law, a 19-year-old Winston-Salem man was arrested last week on allegedly 4 counts of animal cruelty charges, and they're mounting those charges are. And please don't look this up because it describes what he was doing to these animals. It was horrible. In North Carolina, this is a Class H felony, so he might only get a couple years in jail. Shouldn't it be moved to a Class B felony so at least somebody like that would get 8 or 9 years? Ogie.
Yeah, kids that abuse animals grow up to be adults who are abusive in relationships. There's got to be punishment, but there's also got to be some counseling. Those are sick people that do that.
I don't disagree with Ogie. Look at the other side. This individual probably is coming from a situation that developed him and put him in that place. Jail's not going to cure him of that. We need a more counseling. We need more mental health intervention. We need to try to catch these people before the bad behavior instead of putting them in jail after the bad behavior. Unfortunately, we got to do both.
Quickly, Keith, what do you think?
I think Dave is correct. I think criminal justice system overall needs to be rehauled and reformed because we're putting people in jail for animals and more time than people getting for doing criminal acts. So they're getting more time. So I think we got to reform the criminal justice system, period.
All right, the city of Durham just started a new program where unarmed first responders will be sent out to handle nonviolent 911 calls. The police union criticized this move, saying, how do you know a nonviolent call isn't going to turn into a violent? And quickly, guys, are you okay with sending unarmed personnel out to handle 911 calls, Ogie?
Well, a lot of people are going to be looking at Durham to see how this thing works out. That was one of the things that the police reform movement advocated, to do that. I think it's okay, but I mean, I'm curious to see how it pans out.
Mr. Daggett.
It's interesting, as you know, I do a lot of teaching with the EMS Academy. The EMS personnel frequently respond to 911 calls. They are unarmed and there's dangerous situations out there. So it's actually already happening. The key question is when to and when not to, and that's what needs to sort itself out.
Keith.
I think it's absolutely crazy. That's like having these security guards at the mall. What are you doing? People getting shot. A security guard got shot at the mall recently. Why aren't you armed? Do not send an unarmed person out to me to solve an issue, because you don't know if it's going to turn violent. And then if it does turn violent, what are you going to do about it?
I agree. Now, finally, guys, a new study from China says if you wake up in the middle of the night a lot, that it's because your furniture is arranged wrong. It's a feng shui type thing. Guys, you wake up in the middle of the night a lot, and is it because of feng shui?
I do, but it's not that.
David.
Darn, I thought Ogie was going to tell me to feng shui at home, and I was going to go home and say, Cindy, let's feng shui.
Yeah, that sounds bad to me. Keith, do you wake up a lot in the middle of the night? And
Do I wake up a lot in the middle of the night?
Never mind.
Yeah, I do, but not for those reasons.
Yeah. Me either. I do too, but mine's not because of feng shui, it's because of feng shui. Right. All right, well, that's all the time we have, except for this. An Ohio man brought back a Bob Dylan album to his local library 48 years after he checked it out. He was embarrassed. He told the librarian, I'm sorry for bringing back the Bob Dylan album so late. She was nice. She says, don't think twice. It's all right. See, that's a Bob Dylan lyric.
Yeah, right.
All that for that. All right, so we're all going to wake up tonight and think about it. I'm Jim Lager. We'll see you next week.